Hello everyone and welcome to the Gunpla Network. I'm the Spicer and today's review of the high-grade Harute from Gundam 00's movie Awakening of a Trailblazer is brought to you by Canadian Gundam. Canadian Gundam is your one-stop shop for all your Gunpla and Plamo needs here in North America. When you're checking their catalog and placing your order, don't forget to use the promo code Gunpla Network to save yourself 10%. The GN-011 Gundam Harute comes to us from Gundam 00 Awakening of a Trailblazer, the movie that was released back in 2010. Much like its predecessors, the Harute is a variable mobile suit that has both a high-flying mobile armor mode and a more traditional mobile suit mode. This unit is not only unique in the fact that it is the first Celestial Being Gundam to feature a dual pilot system, allowing for both Allelujah Haptism and Soma Peries to pilot the mobile suit, but the Harute takes design cues from all of the Gundams from Celestial Being's banner. The transformation gimmick from its predecessors in the Arios and Kyrios, and of course all the way back to the Abdul, the GN cannons of the Cerevi Virtue series of mobile suits, the scissor bits from the Cherubim, and of course the GN blades from the Exia line. The Harute is maybe not the pinnacle of Celestial Being technology, but it is incredibly advanced and tries to adapt as many different facets of Celestial Being's technology as it can. The box is as you'd expect for any of the Awakening of a Trailblazer kits, as it's pretty different than what we've seen with the rest of the Gundam 00 series, as the box is mostly white. It's a very stark contrast from what we saw with the Arios, but it fits in with the series. No space background, it's all white, but it's fighting in space because it's the only time we see it fight anyway. We have the logos, of course, for the high grade, the unit number behind and to the left, the movie logo, and of course the blue Bandai logo. As we move to the other side of the box, we have all of the gimmicks and weapons, which is of course primarily going to be the transformation and the moving parts on the weapons. Outside of that, there's not a whole lot going on this kit. Everything's pretty self-contained. Once we get to the other side, we'll also see some lore about not only the Harute, but both of its pilots in Allelujah and Soma. So we have quite a bit to read there. Of course, you can find a lot of the same information on the wiki as well. Once we crack the box open and take a look at the plastic, we're treated to actually a fairly small number of plates, starting with the A plate with some gray, some red, some clear, and some yellow. We also have B1 and B2, which are pretty much identical with the exception of B1 having a few more pieces, but both molded in white for most of the armor. We then have the two C plates C1 and C2 in the signature orange of the Harute. We then have D1 and D2 in gray for most of the inner pieces and all of the weaponry. Lastly, we have the E plate, which is molded in a darker gray or black colors comparison to anything else on the kit. We also have a manual and sticker sheet, with the manual matching the box pretty well, and the sticker sheet having a couple of large ones with the red and the inner detailing for the weapons. Now that it's all built up, I have to say the visuals are pretty nice. Everything appears to be screen accurate with no major missing color apps, and the few that are missing are fairly small black and gray detailing portions that aren't really all that noticeable. This is definitely a far cry from the giant orange stickers the Arios needed for its leg binders. While there are a few fairly large color correcting stickers, they're not all that noticeable, and we'll talk about those more in a moment. But the one thing I really would have liked to have seen on this kit would be some clear green plastic for the GN blades or rifle sword thingies. The clear plastic's okay, but it really doesn't attract any attention. If you apply just a little green Gundam marker to these, it goes a really long way, as that green plays really nicely off the orange that makes up a lot of the Harute's color. The rifle swords do feature one of the major stickers I was talking about, with the gray and black detailing stickers for some of the mechanical inner workings, but they're fit fairly well, and even though they have some grooves to go into, they're not all that bad. The other one of note is actually under a piece of clear plastic and serves as kind of the canopy of the mobile armor portion, and actually doesn't look like a sticker. Since it's under clear plastic, it's hard to tell the difference. There are some nice armor layering portions on this kit, most notably in the shoulders and front skirts. These really pop if you just take a little bit of panel lining marker and paint the bottom portion black. It really sticks out. You can leave it as is and the shadows will kind of help anyway, but if you really want it to pop, just using a little Gundam marker helps, or taking some matte black paint would really make a difference here. This is one of those instances, a little paint, a little care goes a long way. Visuals aside, I'd actually say I had a much harder time with this in terms of posing than its predecessor in the Arios. The two large GN cannons on the back make this unit incredibly back heavy in mobile suit mode, meaning you don't really have a lot of options on the ground. Now, nicely enough, there are two different peg holes for stands, one facing down for mobile suit mode and the other facing out the back for mobile armor mode. Now once you get it transformed to its jet mode, it actually does look really good, but you're kind of limited in posing options. I would say though, with the GN rifle sword serving as the wings and being very angular, any kind of downward tilted poses will look really aggressive with this setup. This might actually honestly be a kit I leave in mobile armor mode, just because posing it in mobile suit mode is kind of frustrating. And just as a point of reference, out of all of the transforming kits I have, none of them are posed in mobile armor mode. So kind of keep that in mind. Now, I also kind of have to say I'm someone who values stability over transformations, so I'm not gonna lie, it's a little biased from that perspective, but just kind of keep that in mind. Now, once we get it in mobile suit mode, we do have the same shoulders that the Arios had, so they have a pretty good range of motion, but have a few issues when you bring them forward up kind of past parallel with the chest. That kind of leads into the issue that the GN rifle swords have, as they're pretty heavy, so once you start getting them out in more kind of a dynamic sweeping pose, they start to fall a little bit, which is partially also on the shoulder joint on the inside of the shoulder armor, not so much where it meets at the ball joint, but both of those PC joints have a few issues. Now, all that partnered with the large GN cannons on the back do make it a little finicky to get everything out of the way and actually in a pose. That's not to say you can't get dynamic poses out of this mobile suit, it's just a little harder. One thing I did find useful in posing is actually sweeping the GN cannons forward in kind of like a firing position. It moves them out of the way of the arms, but it also looks kind of weird if you're trying to utilize a melee slashing pose with those, just because they're meant for like big long range firing attacks, not so much melee attacks. I do want to take this moment to say though that a lot of these posing issues I feel like don't come from the model kit itself, but more the design. While this is from 2010, there's not a lot of newer technologies or joint systems that would make a lot of difference in a kit like this. The back GN cannons could use a little bit more mobility, but just due to their sheer size, it's going to be hard to keep them out of the way regardless. They make up a large part of the mobile suit in terms of its weight and just sheer scale, and they're about as tall right on the back, so it is hard to move them out of the way. Whatever joint system you use there is also going to have some issues. You're really just not going to find a good compromise for that. So I feel like Bandai in 2010 did the best they could with this design. And honestly, the design itself is something I think is served more as a statue than a highly posable model kit, which isn't all that unique for the Awakening of a Trailblazer movie, as a lot of those designs serve a very similar purpose. They're a lot cooler in statue singular poses than they are in just kind of playing with them and trying to get them in neat poses. Overall, I do think fans of the 00 series, or even just the movie, would be pretty well served with this kit, but if you like posing kits a lot, this may not be the best option for you. Since it does still look really good from a just purely visual standpoint, if you're okay with a more statuesque design and just kind of leaving it on your shelf, this is still a solid purchase. I mean, visually speaking, it is really nice. The armor layering is good, the color accuracy is good, the proportions are pretty solid as well. But if you like posing, maybe not your kit. It's good from the aspect that it's a challenge, but if you just want to have fun with something, it's probably not this one. Maybe the Arios or Kyrios are a little bit more suited for that. But generally speaking, overall, pretty enjoyable, just a couple of things to consider when you're looking at purchasing this kit. But I've been the Spicer here with the Gunpla Network. As always, friends, stay safe and keep on building.